Welcome. I'm so excited you've tuned into the Sacred Gut Punch podcast, the place of authentic stories, real breakthroughs, and endless possibilities. We share epic stories of everyday people who role model emotional resilience for the world to emulate, finding their way through sacred gut punches that may feel impossible to overcome. I'm Dr. Tomi White-Bryan. I'm a coach and consultant in human and organizational performance and the creator of Emotional Intelligence 3.0, a system for achieving extraordinary performance, especially in the face of those sacred gut punches. In this episode, we have a delightful special guest, Lara Stone. In the last episode, we spoke with Jeff Stone about his experience of the sacred gut punch of losing his son, Max, to cancer. In this episode, we welcome Lara, Jeff's wife, and a dear friend. She's just a delightful human being. I love being in her presence. And she's in a community of practice with me, and I get to listen to her wisdom and her writings and her musings. And she's just so wonderful, and I'm so excited for you to be here today, Lara.
Tomi, thanks so much for having me. It's my pleasure to come and be with you, and I appreciate the invitation.
Well, I'm thankful you said yes, so thank you for doing that. And, I know this is going to be silly, but I can't help myself. We don't pull any punches here. We just jump into the sacred gut punch. Now, our listeners heard last episode Jeff's story of the sacred gut punch, and now we're going to get your version.
Absolutely. So I haven't listened to Jeff's recording, so I don't know exactly what he said. I did ask him about it. And we both obviously share the loss of our son, Max. And just as human beings do, we come at that experience and our grieving process in losing him and going through his illness in different ways. And as Max's mama, one of the ways that I have processed my loss as a mother is to write about that. And so when Max was diagnosed with lymphoma and became ill, I started one place that we could share that experience. And I kept a blog so that when we were getting questions about his illness and what people could do and so forth, but it became so much more than that. It became the place that I was able to process grief and fear and anxiousness. And when he died, I took what I expected to be a love letter to him, and I've been working on a memoir.
Wow. So this started as a letter to your son, Max.
It did. It did. And I think in the beginning, I just imagined that through chemo and all of the different ways that we approached trying to heal his body and to put him into remission, that he might need some refreshers or a reminder about what that experience was like and who showed up for him and how he showed up and how to track the details of the world of chemo. And he received some sort of groundbreaking treatments that didn't make any sense to me. I don't have a medical background. And so I tracked a lot of details. And then when he didn't survive, it's also the place that I went to process the grief that we were feeling as a family and that I was experiencing personally. And over time, I didn't know in the moment that I would do something with that work or that body of writing. But over time, I was encouraged to take it and write a memoir.
So there's a couple of things, and I all my guests know I'm a big crier. I usually don't get very far in. Tears are already here. As the mom of two boys, I can't imagine the grief of losing one. And I have had the privilege of being a witness to what you and Jeff have been through this community of practice. But what you said, there were a couple of things that struck me in that. Number one is you said It was going to be a reminder for him.
Yeah. Well, if you've ever supported someone who is going through cancer treatment, it's a very overwhelming, foggy experience. And I appreciated how Max approached his treatment, like he approached his life, like all in, fully embracing it. And he would be quick to say, like, I don't know how to do this, or I need help with this, or you may not move forward with that until my parents are here because I can't process this and I need help. Like he just did. He just did it that way. And so I just, it's sort of like I think of the blog as a way to note take. And so there was everything from like details, but there were also photographs and became sort of a collage of people who came to visit. The place that I stored it is actually an incredible site called CaringBridge. And it's often a place that I have interacted with loved ones who have gotten sick. And the beauty of it is that you can leave messages. And I know that we share someone through our community of practice that was also injured and was recovering. And it's brilliant, really, right? You can go to this one place and you can read updates from family and you can hear and you can sort of be in community with people that love you and that love your person. And so it became, I think there's been over 60,000 visits to Max's site or something like that, which is, people would go and you subscribe and you want to know how he's doing. And it was just, for me, it became a place of hope.
I'm astounded or stunned, or I'm not sure what the word is, but 60,000 visits for your son, a young
Yeah,
man? I mean,
yeah,
that's compelling, isn't it?
it is. And it's sort of where that idea came, like, you have something to contribute, like beyond just that Max was sick and that he was going through this experience. As I continued to write about my grief as a mother, about the questions that we faced, about what healing looks like, I was very public about it. And I had many people reach out to me in that community, but also just privately saying, like, the way that you're going about this and your raw experience of it has so much to teach other people. I hope you'll do something with this. I hope you'll keep writing, and I hope that you will consider publishing something about this weird dichotomy of grief and how you wrap the rest of your life around that grief, because it's there forever.
You have survived an unimaginable loss, right? A lot of people don't know this, but I wrote my dissertation on crisis management
Mm-hmm.
and what happens in the wake of that unimaginable loss. And, for a long time, the biggest unimaginable loss, airplanes, large loss of life quickly. Um, Hurricane Katrina, right, wiped out communities, right? And it's really about, how do I reconstruct my identity without this thing that I thought I was going to have? Whether it be the loved one who goes down in the plane, the loss of my life and all my possessions, the loss of my house and my worldly possessions in a hurricane. And I hear you say CaringBridge has been instrumental and writing has been instrumental. The building of this community has been instrumental. What else have these things, what platform have they created for you to stand on as you've been in this place of grief for, just like I said, the club no one hopes they ever have to belong to?
Well, one of the things that I will say to you is that someone recently asked me I got together with someone who also has lost a child and is a memoirist. And she said, have you thought about the question that your book answers? What question does it answer? And I knew, like, sort of prickly feeling in the back of your neck, knew that the thing that I have been working through and the question that the book answers is, do you have to put grief down to experience joy again? And the work that I have done in the 4 years since Max's death is no, you don't ever put it down, but you learn to meet the person that you love in both. And I've shared that with you before in this sort of community practice work that we've done, but it's wild to me because Jeff and I both got tattoos on our arm. And mine says maximum joy, which I know your listeners won't be able to see it, but I'll show it to you and remind you.
Yeah.
And Jeff Stone got maximum boy, which are two of the names that we called him. And I one day was sort of looking down at my arm, which is what I intended. He was a lefty. So I just looked down at my left arm and I saw it there. And I laughed out loud because in a moment of just how Max was, I thought, well, duh. He wants me to experience maximum joy. He's like, Mama, I'm right here. You know, you can have me, which when you first lose the person you love, particularly and if it's a like a super close person, like a child or a life partner or your parents, like you don't think there's any other way to feel connected and close to your person unless you are deep in your grief. That's the only way that Jeff and I were finding the closeness. And we thought, we'll always want to feel this way. We'll always want to grieve this hard because it's the only time we feel close. And then I went to a friend's son's wedding. And of course, I thought that I won't dance at Max's, but I can dance now at this person's wedding. And I love to dance. A little known secret is I love to dance and my husband does not. Oftentimes I'll just be out there with my girlfriends. But there are moments like dancing where for like a split second, you forget the grief for a moment. And you didn't put it down, but you like felt the dichotomy of, oh, I can think of him in this moment of true joy and true happiness and have the sort of melancholy and that different feeling be swapped out for a minute and feel that close to him and not have it be so piercing and painful, but like take your breath away, happy that he's right there in those moments of joy.
Always on your arm, right?
Yeah, always right there.
Forever on your arm in the form of a tattoo. Would you, I don't want to miss the poignancy and the power and the beauty of the question your memoir will answer. Do you mind repeating that for us? Because it feels really deep and profound, and I don't want to miss it.
Yeah. This person said, your memoir has to answer a question. What question will your book answer? And I thought immediately in my mind, it will answer the question, can you experience joy and grief at the same time? Or in other words, do you have to put grief down to experience joy?
And what you are finding is it's a both and.
It's a both and. And if you asked me that question, maybe in the days right following Max's death, I would have said, I don't know. Just don't know. But part of the healing and the time and the wrestling is almost the ability to curate experiences since his death, to tell me, have I had moments that are both and? And I know now that you can, but I couldn't have said that without some time spent living without him.
That begs the question. It's so cliche that time heals all wounds. Because I don't actually believe that's true.
Yeah.
I think the distance gives us space to view it differently.
And honestly, it gives you time to practice. Right? So you just, and people joke about you just don't know what you don't know. Amen. But I can say that, like, it's given me time to practice. And I've taken memoir writing class, and I've enrolled in the first 50 pages. So you sign up for a course with 10 other people who are also writing a memoir, and you give that group 50 pages of your writing. And they say, "Ooh, I want this or that, or I want more of this, or I can't hear this." And resoundingly, what people said is, you're taking some original work that was all about Max. What we want to know is more about you, right? So that's sort of the juxtaposition of, if you take writing that was at first a love letter to my son, you can get parts of me, but now people want to know, what's it been like? How did you feel? Did you want to take the paper towel dispenser off the wall and smash it through the bathroom window? Did you? Because I didn't write that in the blog. So now I get what they're saying, right? And what kinds of experiences, what have you done to heal? What does it look like to heal? If you're reading a memoir and you've just lost your child, what are you gaining from it?
Yeah, it feels like this experience of walking Max through cancer is the beginning of the story, but you're the middle and the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what happened, and now let's look at what's happened to me because of that.
Yeah. And interestingly that you say that, I just have been working with an editor a bit, and I said, I remember honing in, because I don't know about you, but I thought, oh, I know the difference between an autobiography and a memoir. But I didn't really know, because, like, pulling that apart and teasing it out, a memoir truly is a sliver of your life. And, I could read several memoirs about Stevie Nicks because I find her fascinating, right? So you might get a sliver of her life when she was part of Fleetwood Mac, but then maybe you'd get a sliver of her life when she went solo, and then a sliver. I don't want to really write a book about my mom's cancer and her dying. I maybe want to touch on that I got cancer after Max died, and that my dad just died from cancer. Like, damn it. There's a theme, but I don't really want to write 4 books about this. So I mostly want to write about Max, because that feels the most pressing and like the sliver I want to tell. But it certainly is informed by the experiences I've had before and the experiences I've had after. So just figuring that out for myself. And that's just when I'm wearing an author hat. I wear a lot of other hats. This isn't what I do for my life's work. It's not even, it's just been something I can't say that. I can say to you that I write for my work, because I write grants and I fundraise, and I'm a director of a nonprofit, and I read legislation and write legislative feedback. And I do a lot of other writing, but this is so much more personal and poignant.
Right. It is a facet of who you are.
Yeah.
And I love that distinction between memoir and autobiography, because I was going to ask you, will you include, and sometimes the universe feels like it has no mercy, because when you guys are in grief, you get diagnosed with breast cancer. And I thought, oh, is this going to be part of the book too? Because that feels like it just makes the journey I mean, maybe you got halfway up the mountain and a rock slide comes and you have to run back down. You have to run back down so you'll get taken out by it, right?
What, are you kidding me?
I know. Oh, listen, I tell people you have no idea how many times I look up into the sky and shout, WTF, universe, this is what you have planned for me today. Come on.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, I think Jeff Stone calls it another opportunity for growth. He puts an F in there too, but.
Okay. Well, that sounds really mature. And some days I don't want to be mature.
Right. Amen. Yeah. So I would say it will make it in there. There is a chapter. And I don't know, interestingly today, I have a beloved relationship with Taylor Swift. It came late in life.
I was going to ask you. I saw the news right before we got on.
And I love a good romance. And when I say how late in life this came to me as a mama of boys, when all my girlfriends with baby girls were raising their kiddos and going to their first Taylor Swift concert, my kids weren't into Taylor Swift. So I kind of missed out on that experience. And in the summer of 23, when the Barbie movie came out, Beyonce was on tour, Taylor Swift was on tour, I read an awesome New York Times article about the economy of she. And I said to a dear friend, I want to go to a concert. I want to go see Taylor Swift in concert. I feel like I'm missing out on this sort of iconic, badass, sort of cultural experience. And do you want to go? And she said, let's do it. So I was taking a writing class at the time. And one of the people in the writing class said, that's what I'm effing talking about. I want to know what the concert's like. I want to know what the experience is like going as a mother who's lost a child. How did you feel? Where were you? What did you wear? What were the sparkles like? How many people were on the tube in London going to the concert when you went? And so today happens to be the day that Taylor and Travis got engaged. And while we were in London, not the concert, not the night we went, was the night that he appeared on stage during the mime act.
Yes.
And just, it was the next night. And of course, we heard all about it while we were in London, out at dinner, and just an epic romance. And the joy and the sort of healing nature of being mostly with women, to be honest. 90,000 of my closest sisters at Wembley Stadium, just in a state of healing is the only way to describe it. I felt like it was a spiritual experience. And of course, the music was amazing. Of course, but there was something about a level of joy that profound and that celebratory and that choreographed, sort of this level of spontaneity, but yet planned, because she is a master at joy and bringing everyone's bracelet lights up at the same time. Everyone, it's just, you felt like you were undulating in a level of magnificent joy. And to be with best friends, to be with one of my dearest who was by my side when Max left this earth, and she has watched me bring him into the world, just there's something about it.
You know what I love? So my father was always fascinated by Disney World. He loved that they engaged all five senses. It wasn't just seeing, it was smelling, it was hearing, it was the whole thing. And as you were describing this Taylor Swift concert, it felt like the same thing, that she's conquered sort of it's the magic of Disney. It's the magic of Taylor Swift. And what I hear you saying is when you entered that magic, that, Disney's the Magic Kingdom, maybe it's the magic concert for Taylor Swift, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But when you entered that exuberance, it transformed how you felt.
Yes. And it comes back to that question. do you have to put grief down to experience joy? And the answer is no. You don't put it down. It becomes a little bit more of the backstory, and the joy can like come forward just that much more for more moments, right? And I think sort of that's the story I want to tell. Is I know that what it feels like to have it feel like it will only ever be like this. It will only ever hurt this much, and you'll only ever think that you can be close to them in this, but you actually can have the other.
One of the things that I talk about with my coaching clients who are grieving is I love Kubler-Ross's stages of grief, but I actually think there is one that they're missing, and I call it remembrance, right? And so, after you go through those stages front and center in the days after, right? And for me, remembrance is so extremely powerful that, so my father, even right now, the universe is giving me the chance to practice remembrance. He died 28 years ago, and some days it feels just like it was yesterday. And so for me, remembrance is this really profound, important part of the grief cycle. Because when we do remember with deep grief, it's just a reflection of how much we loved.
I agree with you. Yeah. And there's been so much that's been said, right, about grief being just all that pent up love with nowhere to go, right? And it just feels natural that it come out in certain ways. So I'm not shy about it.
Well, you're in one of our community gatherings, Jeff, your husband, said that one of the things he learned was to remember to love and remember to breathe. And for those who listen to the podcast, they know this community that we belong to has forever changed who I am in profound ways. And so Jeff, he said, remember to love, remember to breathe. And then I added, remember to love, remember to breathe, but remember to grieve as well. And when I'm breathing, I don't know about you, but if I stop to breathe, the grieving stops. I don't know if you found that to be true for you as well. So when I remember to breathe, it actually brings me back in this moment so that I can remember the love without that overwhelming sense of grief.
I feel similarly about that. Yeah. When Max first died, I remember as a mother of boys saying, if I do not get like boot camp enrolled in therapy for a grieving mother, I will destroy the relationships I have with my other two boys. Because all I want to do is wrap them in bubble wrap, right? And they tended to be, all three of them, fast drivers, fast skiers, moving, like adrenaline junkie, always sort of archiving the next adventure into their books. And I just knew, maybe it had to do with breathing. Like I knew that I needed to structure some sort of process for myself because the raw grief, the keening, like terrible, I can barely function, could look like spewing my love, because love started to look like it was synonymous with worry. If I'm worried about you, then I love you.
Right.
And the goo that's spewing on my children doesn't feel like love.
Not from where they sit.
Not from where they sit. Right? So it became this and so one of the first big unpacking moments that I did around grief was, that is so different. like for my kids, just the feedback was, Mama, like we're already like this, sort of tight around our PTSD, around loss and phone calls that mean bad news. And so, just breathing and taking things down and patiently working through something, and not like the story. I've actually shared it with you before, but I'll share it with your listeners of like call, text, like calling Sam, no answer, calling again, no answer, texting him, can you call me? And then he calls and he's all up here and saying, what is it, Mom? And I say, oh, nothing. I just wanted to hear your voice. And he says, don't do that. That is too much. That is so stressful for me. I think that something is amiss. Something is wrong. You're hurt. You have cancer. Dad's like cut off his arm with a bandsaw, something crisis oriented. And so more breathing, more remembering to grieve, and to just have worry convert to prayer. And I don't even mean like whatever prayer looks like. I don't mean like religious prayer, praise be, Jesus prayer. It could, if that's what works for you. But I mean like prayer as in my whole body holds that my children are safe, my husband is safe, I am safe, like all is well. And then whatever is on my mind about them, I'm sort of turning and converting worry into I'm holding, the universe is holding that all is well. And if I can learn to do that, and I can take the time and the space to do that, which can look like deep breaths, and then I'm teaching myself a whole new way to love.
That feels so profound. It's a natural response of a parent to worry anyway, right? And then to have the worst contemplation come into reality, it feels like such a natural response as a parent to say, oh, let me protect my chicklets, right?
Yeah, everybody under one roof. I mean, any mama will say, oh my gosh, when they're all home and everybody is literally in for the night, lock all the doors, everyone is safe. Well, you can't. This is an unrealistic approach and expectation, but we do it to ourselves. And I for sure did not see how deeply ingrained for me was worry equals love.
Well, and I love how your children have been your partner in learning how to manage this or hold it, be a container for this grief in a different way.
Yeah.
And say, hey, Mom, that worry is a problem.
Yeah.
What helped you see, or what was it that allowed you to go, okay, let me breathe and let me hold this as a prayer in a different way?
I actually had the experience as part of a grief retreat, and it was sort of a very profound separation where I was able to see, like, look what I'm doing. I've conflated, and I've had them be synonymous when I can separate them for myself. And I think probably inherent in that was some belief that, to be honest, I didn't think I was good at meditation or I was good at prayer, because the thoughts come in, like I'm a doer and very action and I'm moving constantly, literally physically moving my body. I'm a walker, a runner. And so I didn't feel good at meditation and stillness. And so I think prayer looked like I had to be sitting in a pew in church praying, or sitting still and meditating. It had to look a certain way, and I just freed myself completely. It can look that way, and it can look like walking and breathing at the same time, or it can look like journaling and meditating, and it can look however I need it to look or want it to look, but just freeing myself up about that.
So you've shared with our listeners that you have been journaling. Now you're writing a book. You went to a grief work. I don't want to minimize it. Was it a grief retreat, a grief workshop? What would you call it?
Yeah, I've done a number of retreats. You and I have been part of this community of practice together. That has been enormously helpful for me. I've done some spiritual retreat work. I've done some writers' retreats. There's a beautiful retreat center in Western Mass called Kripalu.
Yes.
And it's just a place that I feel very peaceful. Jeff and I have done some work there together. Yeah.
So if you were talking to a parent who just lost their child, just even saying that out loud rattles my little cage, right? What would be, and we want to be mindful of, overwhelming people with advice, but you are someone who's been there, right? And we all know that there's something about the advice of someone who's been there. I laughed when the Carolina Panthers football team went to the Super Bowl, which happened once under Ron Rivera. When they made it into the Super Bowl, he got calls from like everybody he knows, right? They were texting him, they were calling him, they were leaving messages. And this is what he said. He said, listen, if you haven't been there, don't draw me a map. Right? Because it's probably not going to be a good one.
It's not relevant. Yeah.
You've been there. What's the pieces of advice for those folks who may be confronting the same thing that you and Jeff experienced?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because we often joke about things not to say versus what to say or what to do. Like what not to say is heaven gained another angel, or everything happens for a reason, or I think I have something to complain about. And then I think of you.
Oh, oh my goodness. Please tell me you didn't hear that from someone.
Of course I have. Absolutely. So I think humor is amazing. It's an amazing thing. And so I think we have had conversations with dear friends who've lost a child, and there is really a lot of camaraderie that comes with just not having to explain yourself. More than anything, what I often receive is requests for what can I do for someone that I love who's lost a child? Like, do you have anything that has been helpful? Are there any books that have been your go-to? It's almost like the loved ones reaching out to us to say, I so don't want to get this wrong. I want to be that safe place for them, and I don't want to get it wrong. Do you have any thoughts? Sheryl Sandberg wrote a beautiful book. She worked for Facebook for a long time. She was, I think, their COO. And she lost her husband to a massive heart attack. And she and a dear friend, one of his best friends, wrote a book called, I think it's called Option B. And she writes some wonderful tips in there. And one of them was, ask someone who's lost a child or lost someone dear how they're doing today. And I love that. Like, how are you? With, like, Jeff always calls it the puffed out lip. How are you? With like this deep concern. There's so much pressure. Just say, how are you doing today? Which just in that small word change is so much understanding of like, I'm sure that you're terrible. That I know that. I'm just wondering, like, is there something about today that's going well or not? Or just be yourself. You don't have to be perfect. Yeah. So I think we just make ourselves available. We always tell the people that have lost someone, like, we're here for you. if you want to just go for a walk or be together with someone who understands where you don't have to explain. We just offer that often. Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful gift to offer those who are facing what you've walked for 4 years now. That's beautiful. Thank you for being our guest. Is there any last thing you'd like to say? A song or a mantra that got you through it all, or that you'd like to share?
I just want to reference something you said about all your senses, because the biggest thing that I would say is I give myself permission and so much freedom to have my grief arise whenever it needs to. And it can happen when I eat something that Max adored, or I hear a piece of music that my dad was really lit up by, or sometimes I see my mom and my grandmother's hands in my own. Like I'll catch a gesture or a way that my hands look in the mirror and think, oh, right there. So it's all of my senses, like you said, like Disney or Taylor Swift, it engages all of your senses. And I think that grief does that too, but we clamp down on it so often. So I would just offer that, like, let it take all of your senses and be open to that, because you can catch glimpses of your person in those moments.
That's beautiful. Let grief have its way with you whenever it shows up.
100%.
Well, thank you for being a guest and sharing your wisdom with our listeners around the world, because what you've been through, I have to tell you that you and Jeff have just been grace personified as you've managed this tragedy in your lives. And I thank you for letting me be a witness to it. I love you dearly.
I love you dearly. Thanks for inviting me to be on your podcast.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Sacred Gut Punch. I'd like to thank our sponsors who make this podcast possible, the EI 3.0 companies of Bryan Insights and the Center for Emotional Well-Being, and of course, always to my husband, attorney Jim Bryan. Thank you for your endless support and love. I love you to the moon and back, Jimmy. If you're finding inspiration in the stories, please like and subscribe to the podcast and share with your friends and family who can benefit from these stories of resilience and rising. And if you're experiencing a sacred gut punch, remember, while you may feel alone, you are not. Help is out there. If you or someone you know is in crisis and considering suicide or self-harm, please seek support. Call or text the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988, or chat at 988lifeline.org. And if you're not in the United States, Befrienders worldwide at befrienders.org can help you. Until next time, dear ones, may you use the difficulty as you rise with grace.